Imagine standing in a museum in Cairo. The lights are low, and in front of you sits a granite box, the size of a school bus, carved with such impossible precision that a modern laser couldn't do it better. Scientists have measured it. Engineers have studied it. And every single one of them walked away saying the same thing. This should not exist. But it does. What if everything you were taught about history is wrong? What if ancient civilizations didn't just build with stone and sweat? What if they possessed knowledge so advanced, so precise, that even in 2026, with all of our satellites and supercomputers and AI, we still cannot replicate what they made? Not theoretically, not approximately, not even close. Today, we're not talking about myths. We're not talking about legends passed down around a fire. We are talking about real, physical objects. Objects you can touch. Objects sitting in museums right now, under glass, under lock and key, because the alternative explanation is something the scientific establishment is simply not ready to accept. 10 discoveries. 10 objects. 10 moments that shatter the official timeline of human civilization. And by the time we reach number 1, I promise you will never look at history the same way again. Let's begin. Number 10. The Serapeum Boxes of Saqqara. It's 1851. French archaeologist Auguste Mariette is digging through the sands of Saqqara, Egypt, the ancient burial complex south of Giza. His team breaks through a wall, and what they find in the tunnel below stops everyone cold. 25 enormous granite boxes, each one weighing over 100 tons, each one carved from a single block of solid Aswan granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. The interiors are hollowed out to tolerances of 0.0001 inches. That is a precision tighter than the width of a human hair. Let that sink in. The ancient Egyptians, supposedly working with copper chisels and wooden mallets, carved the interior of these boxes so perfectly flat that a modern optical measurement tool, the kind used in aerospace manufacturing, registers 0 deviation. 0. These boxes are more precise than the machine tools we use to build fighter jets today. Each lid weighs 27 tons. The lids fit so perfectly that no light passes through the seam. Air cannot pass through the seam. Engineers from MIT visited these boxes and said, point blank, we do not know how this was done. Not with modern tools, certainly not with ancient ones. The official story says these boxes were used to bury sacred bulls, but here's what nobody talks about. Not a single mummy was ever found inside. No DNA, no organic material, no evidence of any burial, ever. So what were these boxes actually for? This should not exist, but it does, and Egypt is just the beginning. Number 9. The Antikythera Mechanism. In 1901, sponge divers off the Greek island of Antikythera pulled something strange from a Roman shipwreck, a corroded lump of bronze. Nobody knew what it was for decades. Then, in the 1970s, scientists began X-raying it. What they found inside rewrote history. Gears, dozens of interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth smaller than a millimeter, differential gearing, epicyclic motion, a pin and slot mechanism so sophisticated it wasn't reinvented until the 14th century in Europe, more than 1,000 years later. The Antikythera mechanism is a computer, a fully functional analog computer built approximately 2,100 years ago that could predict solar and lunar eclipses, track the position of 5 known planets, calculate the 4-year Olympiad cycle, and model the irregular orbit of the Moon. A calculation so precise that it accounts for the actual elliptical path of the Moon, something Newton didn't formalize until 1687. Modern researchers used CT scanning to map every gear tooth. There are at least 37 gears. Some are hypothetically reconstructed, because even in 2026 we still haven't found every fragment. The full machine may have had over 70 moving parts in a device the size of a shoebox, built 2,000 years ago. When scientists tried to recreate it using only tools available in ancient Greece, they failed. The tolerances required aren't achievable by hand, not by the best craftsmen alive today working manually. Something is missing from the story of who built this thing, and how. This should not exist, but it does. While Greece was hiding computers in bronze boxes across the ancient world, someone else was solving an entirely different impossible problem. Number 8. The Delhi Iron Pillar, New Delhi, India. In the courtyard of the Qutb Minar complex stands a column of iron. It is 6 meters tall. It weighs over 6 tons. It was forged approximately 1,600 years ago, during the reign of Chandragupta II. And in 16 centuries of rain, heat, humidity, and air pollution, it has not rusted, not even slightly. Modern metallurgists who analyzed the pillar in 2003 published a paper in the journal Current Science confirming that the iron contains an unusually high amount of phosphorus and slag, which together create a protective layer of iron hydrogen phosphate on the surface. Essentially, the ancient Indian metalworkers accidentally, or intentionally, created a form of passivation that prevents oxidation, a process that modern steel manufacturers still struggle to replicate consistently at this scale. The iron purity is 98%. For context, pig iron in the Industrial Revolution averaged around 92%. This pillar, forged in 400 AD with hand bellows and charcoal furnaces, exceeds the metallurgical capabilities of 18th century Europe. Rust-proof iron that modern industry cannot reliably match. Standing in an open courtyard in one of the world's most polluted cities. Still perfect. This should not exist, but it does. If you're finding these forbidden discoveries as mind-blowing as I am, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. We drop a new reality-shattering video every single week, and trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next month. Number 7. The Lycurgus Cup. The year is 1958. The British Museum acquires a Roman cup, 4th century AD, made of jade green glass with an intricate carved scene of King Lycurgus being entangled by vines. Beautiful, ancient, unremarkable at first glance. Then someone shines a light through it. The cup turns blood red. Depending on the angle and source of light, the Lycurgus cup shifts from opaque green to translucent crimson. For decades, nobody could explain the optical property. Then, in 1990, scientists examined the glass under an electron microscope. They discovered that the Roman craftsmen had embedded nanoparticles of gold and silver into the glass. Particles 50 nanometers in diameter, distributed with a ratio of approximately 70 parts silver to 30 parts gold. Nanoparticles. In 300 AD. Nanotechnology, the deliberate manipulation of matter at the scale of billionths of a meter, is considered a 21st century achievement. The first intentional nanoparticle synthesis in the modern era happened in the 1980s. Yet Roman artisans, 18 centuries earlier, embedded dichroic nanoparticles into glass with a precision that modern researchers at University College London called an extraordinary feat. Nobody knows how they did it. Nobody knows if they understood what they were doing at the atomic level. But they did it. And the result is a cup that can detect chemical changes in liquid, because the nanoparticles respond differently to liquids of different compositions. Some researchers now believe it may have functioned as an ancient chemical sensor, a nanotechnology device, used at Roman dinner parties. 2,000 years ago, this should not exist, but it does. Number 6. Baghdad Battery. Wilhelm Koenig, a German archaeologist working near Baghdad, discovers a small clay jar. Inside the jar, a copper cylinder. Inside the cylinder, an iron rod, corroded at the top. Asphalt seals the assembly. Koenig recognizes the configuration immediately. It is a galvanic cell, a battery. If you fill the jar with an acidic liquid, grape juice, lemon juice, vinegar, it generates approximately 1.1 volts of electrical current, exactly like a modern AA battery. These jars are dated to somewhere between 250 BC and 640 AD, making them at minimum 1,400 years old, possibly 2,300 years old. Mythbusters tested it. They built working replicas and used them to electroplate gold onto silver objects. It worked. The National Geographic Society confirmed the electroplating hypothesis. And here is the truly unsettling part. When archaeologists began reviewing other ancient artifacts from Mesopotamia, they found gold-plated objects from the same era with gold layers thinner than what can be achieved by hand gilding but consistent with electrodeposition. Someone was generating electricity in ancient Iraq, using it to plate precious metals, before Jesus Christ was born. The official academic consensus, which still debates this, cannot explain the artifact away. The physics is undeniable. The construction is too deliberate to be accidental. Electricity existed in the ancient world. This should not exist. But it does. The ancient Middle East was running on electricity, while thousands of miles away, someone in Egypt was carving a stone that looks like it came from a Tesla factory. Number 5. The Schist Disk of Sabu, Egypt, 1936. Archaeologist Walter Bryan Emery excavates a 5,000-year-old tomb at Saqqara, tomb 3357, belonging to a First Dynasty official named Sabu. Inside, among pottery and tools, is a disk carved from schist, a dark, layered metamorphic rock. The disk is 61 centimeters in diameter. It has a raised central hub, and extending from that hub are 3 curved, scalloped lobes with upturned edges, curving in a specific radial direction. It looks exactly like a centrifugal pump impeller, or a turbine rotor, or a flywheel designed to rotate a fluid at high speed. Geologist and engineer Christopher Dunn analyzed the disk and noted that the curvature of the lobes is aerodynamically optimized, the same geometric profile used in modern turbines and hydraulic pumps. The schist itself is notoriously difficult to carve. It flakes and splits along its layers, making the precise shaping of those curved surfaces almost physically impossible with stone tools. Modern engineers who have tried to replicate it say it requires either rotary machining or a level of hand skill that exceeds anything documented in ancient Egypt. The official explanation: a decorative stone bowl, a ceremonial vessel, but it has never been classified with any similar bowl. No other object like it has ever been found from this period, and if you showed the schematics, without context, to a mechanical engineer, they would draw you a centrifugal pump and explain exactly how it generates fluid flow. This should not exist, but it does. All right, quick pause here. Drop a comment below telling me which country you're watching from right now. Seriously, I read every single comment. And when you engage, the algorithm pushes this video to more people who deserve to know this hidden history. Your comment matters more than you think. Now, let's cross an ocean. Let's go to Mexico. And let's look at a piece of stone that has haunted researchers since the moment it was unearthed. Number 4. The Palenque sarcophagus lid. Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruz Luillier makes one of the most stunning discoveries of the 20th century: a hidden staircase beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque. At the bottom, a sealed tomb, and inside, the sarcophagus of Kinich Janab Pakal, the great Maya king who died in 683 AD. The lid of his sarcophagus is carved in extraordinary detail. It is nearly 4 meters long. The central figure, Pakal, is depicted reclining at roughly 45 degrees. Around him, what appear to be tubes, control panels, a central axis he is gripping with both hands, flames and exhaust blasting from below, and his body in a position that aeronautical engineers in the 1960s described as identical to the seated position of an astronaut during launch. Erich von Däniken brought this image to the world's attention in 1968. Mainstream archaeologists immediately labeled it a stretch, a figure descending into the underworld, with Maya cosmological symbols. And those symbols are real. They exist. The interpretation is legitimate within Maya religious context. But here is what doesn't get discussed. In 2016, 3D digital modeling of the lid revealed that if you view the carving from a specific axial perspective, the proportions of the central figure's body, the curvature of the surrounding structure, and the positioning of the foot pedals align with no known Maya artistic convention, but do align with functional seated ergonomics. And Pakal's hands are positioned on controls, not in any documented Maya ritual pose. The Maya were extraordinary astronomers, extraordinary architects, but someone, somewhere, was either imagining flight with photographic accuracy or describing something they had seen. This should not exist. But it does. Number 3. The Tassili Martian God. Rock art deep in the Sahara Desert in what is now southeastern Algeria lies one of the most extraordinary open-air galleries on Earth. The Tassili Najr Plateau, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, contains over 15,000 rock paintings dating back as far as 10,000 years. Most are beautiful, ordinary, animals, human figures, daily life. And then there are the others, towering figures with round heads, featureless, smooth, with no facial structure. Beings with what appear to be antennae, suits, and geometric forms on their bodies. The most famous is the so-called Great Martian God, a figure nearly 3 meters tall, its head a perfect oval, its body wrapped in what researchers have described as a structured garment. Around it float smaller figures in similar costumes. Henri Lot, the French explorer who brought these images to the world in 1956, coined the term Martians, and then immediately backed away from the implications. Mainstream anthropologists say these are shamanic figures, ritual beings, spiritual representations of ancestors. But here's the problem. Every other figure in Tassili has a face. Animals, children, hunters, all depicted with humanizing detail. These specific entities, across dozens of separate paintings created by different artists over thousands of years, share the same round-headed, featureless, suited form, as if multiple generations of artists were depicting the same category of being, not imagining it, remembering it. The Sahara was green 10,000 years ago, populated, and someone who lived there painted, over and over, beings that look nothing like humans. This should not exist, but it does.
Number 2. The Dogon tribe and the Sirius star system, Mali, West Africa. The Dogon people are an isolated agricultural tribe. No telescopes, no written scientific tradition, no contact with modern astronomers for most of their history. And yet, embedded in their oral tradition and ceremonial sand drawings, documented by French anthropologists Marcel Griol and Germaine Dieterlen in the 1930s, is a body of astronomical knowledge that should be absolutely impossible. The Dogon know that Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, has a companion star. They call it Potolo. They describe it as small, dense, and extremely heavy. They say it completes an orbit around Sirius every 50 years. They draw its elliptical orbit accurately. Sirius B, the white dwarf companion of Sirius, was not confirmed by Western astronomy until 1862 and was not photographed until 1970. Its 50-year orbital period was mathematically calculated by astronomers in 1927. Its density, roughly 50,000 times that of water, was determined with modern instruments. The Dogon knew all of it, generations before Western science caught up. Their mythology describes the Nommo, beings who came from the Sirius system in a vessel that descended to Earth with a great noise and wind. The Nommo, they say, gave humanity the knowledge of the stars. The Dogon also describe a third star in the Sirius system, Emmeya, which modern astronomy is still investigating. Preliminary data suggests there may in fact be a third object. How did an isolated tribe in Mali know the orbital mechanics of a star system invisible to the naked eye? There are only two explanations. Either someone told them or someone showed them. This should not exist, but it does.
Number 1. The Vimanas of the Mahabharata. Here is where history breaks completely open. The Mahabharata, one of the oldest Sanskrit texts in the world, composed between 400 BC and 400 AD, but drawing on oral traditions thousands of years older, contains hundreds of references to flying vehicles called Vimanas. And these are not vague poetic descriptions. They are technical. The Vaimanika Shastra, a Sanskrit text that claims to be a transcript of ancient knowledge, describes multiple classes of Vimana with specific construction details. The materials used, alloys of specific metals including mercury, the propulsion systems, a gyroscopic mercury vortex engine, the shape, circular with a raised superstructure, the operating altitude, and the fuel consumption. It includes what the text calls rahasyas, technical secrets, covering 7 types of mirrors and lenses used for offensive and defensive purposes, and the specific wing configurations required for stability in different atmospheric layers. In 1895, 8 years before the Wright brothers, a Sanskrit scholar and inventor named Shivkar Bapuji Talpade allegedly built and flew an unmanned mercury vortex aircraft in Mumbai, based on Vimana texts. Eyewitness accounts were published in the Kasari newspaper. The British government reportedly confiscated the aircraft. The story was suppressed. In 2014, scientists at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore presented a paper at the Indian Science Congress based on the Vaimanika Shastra aeronautics data. The paper caused a firestorm, because while the mercury vortex engine is not understood by modern physics, the aerodynamic principles described in the text are genuinely sophisticated. They aren't fantasy. They describe real engineering principles. Mercury, when ionized and spun at high velocity, creates plasma. Plasma can generate electromagnetic thrust. This is the principle behind experimental ion drives currently being developed by NASA and the European Space Agency. The ancient Sanskrit texts described ionized mercury propulsion systems. In detail, thousands of years ago, this should not exist, but it does. Conclusion. So here we are, 10 objects, 10 anomalies, 10 pieces of a puzzle that mainstream history has spent decades trying to explain away, dismiss, debunk, or simply ignore. But here's the truth. The real truth, the one that nobody on television will say out loud. Our ancestors were not primitive. They were not simple. They were not stumbling around in the dark waiting for civilization to arrive. Across Egypt, Greece, India, Iraq, Rome, Mali, Mexico, and the Sahara, separated by oceans and millennia, they were building, calculating, carving, and flying with a precision and a knowledge that we are only now beginning to reapproach. They didn't need aliens to teach them. Or maybe, and this is the question I want you to sit with tonight, maybe the line between ancient human genius and contact with something beyond isn't as clear as we've been told, because in 2026, something has shifted. Space agencies around the world are declassifying anomalous UAP data at an unprecedented rate. The James Webb Space Telescope is finding structures in deep space that violate our cosmological models. And archaeologists, quietly, in peer-reviewed journals away from the cameras, are pushing the timeline of complex civilization back further and further. Göbekli Tepe pushed it to 12,000 years. Recent discoveries in Turkey may push it to 20,000. The official story of human history has an expiration date, and it is coming faster than anyone is ready for. What if our ancestors didn't lose advanced knowledge to time? What if they encoded it in stone boxes with impossible tolerances, in star maps given to isolated tribes, in sarcophagus lids and Sanskrit manuscripts, waiting for a civilization smart enough to finally read the message? Maybe that civilization is us. Maybe 2026 is the year we finally start listening. The past is not behind us. It is speaking to us. Right now. Out of these 10 discoveries, the granite boxes of Saqqara, the Antikythera computer, the rust-proof iron pillar, the nanotechnology cup, the Baghdad battery, the turbine disk, the astronaut sarcophagus, the Martian rock paintings, the Dogon star knowledge, and the Vimana flight manuals. Which one shattered your reality the most? Drop your number, 1 through 10, in the comments right now. The discovery that gets the most votes becomes our next full deep dive video. That's not clickbait. That is a promise. And if you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Hit subscribe. Turn on every notification, because the next video we're releasing, it involves a newly declassified government document, a 2025 archaeological find in the Egyptian desert, and a specific date, that appears carved into stone structures on 3 separate continents. History isn't what they told you. Stay curious, stay awake, and we'll see you in the next one.